Hi, everybody. I wanted to take some time to talk a little bit about my favorite mantra. And as yoga teachers or as yoga students, I think it's important for us to at least know a little bit about Sanskrit mantra and how important they are in the whole world and dimension and realm of yoga teaching. And also as a practitioner, you can really enhance your personal practice, but also your group practice. And you can go really deep into understanding more about not just Sanskrit, but also about the actual practice of meditation and the power of ancient Sanskrit chants. So let's talk today about a few of the mantra that I use every day and that I actually recite in my japa mala practice. So I take my prayer beads and I'll count a certain number of mantra and I'll repeat them a certain amount of times. And these guys, these particular mantra I'll talk about today or over the course of the next few weeks when you see these videos, you'll see the power of the individual mantra and the power of sound and the power of your voice as you articulate these mantra. So let's start with the first one I like to recite at the beginning of my practice when I go do the whole round of these beads. I do normally the Maha Mantra, but then I go into the Om Tryambakam, which you guys may have heard of. It's also known as the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. So I'll recite it and then I'll give you a little bit of the transliteration or the translation in English and then listen to it. Sometimes it doesn't really make much sense because it's in ancient Sanskrit. And what I'm going to do for you is to try and make it a little bit more usable, relatable, and a little bit more in tune with a mindfulness practice that you might be able to relate to. So how about we just go into it? I'll give you the translation and then I'll give you the themes of what we need to look at for each of these mantra. Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. Om Tryambakam Yajamahe, Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam, Urvarukamiva Bandhanan, Mrityor, Mukshiya, Maamritat. And then you elongate the last word. As you finish up, you can throw in an Om at the end and also at the beginning. It's quite a powerful ancient Sanskrit mantra that really talks about, and I'll give you the translation now. We use this when we meditate to Lord Shiva. So he's the three-eyed one who permeates and nourishes all of us like a fragrance. So you'll see this is a little bit ancient and doesn't make all that much sense, but you should put it in the context and we'll talk about this a little bit more. So may he liberate us from the bondage of suffering and death and lead us to the nectar of immortality. So the way I like to use this mantra is really when I'm working on issues of grappling with the idea of suffering or personal growth or protection. If I'm working through an issue in my life which I don't quite understand or that I'm having issues with. A great example is, some of you know, my mother is aging. She's declining in her health. And as you watch someone in your family decline and really degenerate in terms of level of health, but also ability to walk around, her motor skills have declined. So all these things are a big existential crisis, I would say, for those who have the privilege of watching their parents decline in their age. So for me, I use this mantra to seek this understanding, a sense of protection, a sense of analyzing, but gaining some clarity around detaching from this idea of non-acceptance, perhaps. This difficulty of accepting that someone you love is actually one day going to die. I connect with what I like to think of is a higher purpose and whatever that means to you. So if you have a particular spiritual tradition, and mind you, I'm speaking to a lot of yogis and yoginis with Christian Judaism as their background, as their spiritual framework or paradigm from which they sort of fall back on or they refer to in times of need, like the one I'm describing. So this is it's a very personal kind of analysis and self-questioning. It is what we call Svajaya, because we're going deep into our purpose and the purpose of the loved one. You might be trying to seek more understanding around what the issues that they're grappling with, as well as your own. So I like to look at this mantra as something that helps us to renew our gratitude practice, because we're looking for the higher purpose, but we're seeing our worldly experience in the context of what is happening around us, including death, birth, and all of the various cycles in our lives. So the connection to the essence of this mantra is about, I believe, gratitude, but it's also healing, as I said. It's about protection. It's also about understanding how to detach from things that we might not. Let me rephrase that. So how do we grapple with things we just don't understand, that we may understand intellectually, but how do we as a practical matter work through these complicated life issues? So this mantra really talks about the transient nature of suffering and the various phases, as I said, of our life cycles. So I wanted to suggest that one way that we can look at this mantra is to perhaps break it down into simple words. So I like to think of it in terms of an affirmation we might be able to say to ourselves. And I'm going to read you what I wrote today in thinking about how to really apply it to our daily practice, a mindfulness practice. If I were to make an affirmation around this mantra, it would be this: I am resilient, I'm strong, and I focus on what I can, because as you know, there's so much that we can't control. I embrace each moment with wisdom and tranquility. It's about gaining more wisdom, courage, understanding that some things are not easy, some things that you struggle with are really just part of life. And so it's the acceptance that there are going to be some very difficult, challenging obstacles that confront you or that you encounter in life. And it helps you understand how to grapple with those things. So I'm going to wrap up here, and hopefully that was helpful for you as you understand the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. See you next time in the next video.